to subscribe to my channel, and while you're at it, click the bell to be notified of future videos. This block is called Emerald and Topaz. It finishes at 12 inches. And this is one of those blocks that looks like it has curves in it. Here's the diagram. We're going to make half square triangles and half rectangle triangles. Here are 4 blocks set block to block, and here is a quilt, sample quilt layout. Here are the patches. Patch A is a 2-inch finished half square triangle. We cut 2 7/8 inch squares, cut them in half once on the diagonal for 2 patches. We'll need 12 patches of the background and the accent fabric, or if we use the half square triangles 2 at a time method, we'll need 6 squares. And if you're going to do that, you cut the squares this size, but you do not subcut them. And that's what we're going to do in this video. Patch B is a 2-inch finished square. We cut 2 1/2 inch squares. We'll need 8 patches of the background fabric. And here are the ACCUQUILT dies that will cut these 2. For patches C and D, which are the light and dark sides of the half rectangle triangles, I have 3 different ways you can make the half rectangle triangles, and there's going to be a tutorial later on in this video. The first is to use the Rex tool from the Tri-Rex set. We cut strips of fabric from the background and from the accent fabric, and then we use the Rex tool to cut the half rectangle triangle patches. Another method is to cut oversized rectangles, and we'll piece them and then trim them down to the correct size. That will be demonstrated as well. And the other method is to use the ACCUQUILT, and you'll use the side unit of the triangle in square, and here are the dies that will cut that. And those will also be demonstrated, the piecing. Here are the patches. These are the A patches for the half square triangles, and we've cut them in 2 7/8 inch squares. We'll put them together to make our half square triangles. These are the squares used in the corner units. I've already cut the half rectangle triangle pieces. So we'll first start in step 1 is to sew the 12 half square triangles. If you're not familiar with the 2 at a time method, stay tuned for a short tutorial to show you how. On the back side of the light fabric, we're going to draw a diagonal line, put the fabrics together, right sides together, and we're going to stitch on either side of the diagonal line. Here is the diagonal line drawn, and then the stitching on both sides. Now we cut this in half along the diagonal line. Then we have our 2 half square triangles. Press the seams open and cut off the nubs. In step 2, we'll take the half square triangles we just made, sew 4 of these corner units and 1 of the center unit. Just follow the diagram and lay your pieces out like this. This is the corner unit, and we take the squares. So we'll sew the corner units like this. Sew these 2 together, then these 2. Press the seams and sew the 2 rows together, and you'll make 4 of these. Then the center square is going to be like this. We just make 1 of these. Sew them the same way. These 2, press the seams and sew the 2 rows together. Now that we have the corner units and the center unit done, we can turn our attention to the half rectangle triangles. Coming up, we have a tutorial on making half rectangle triangles 3 different ways. If we look at the instructions, we have our 3 different ways to make the half rectangle triangles. The top part here is for using the Rex tool from the Tri-Rex ruler set. You can also use any specialty half rectangle or split rectangle ruler. They all work the same way, and they're all designed to do just this unit. The other method is to cut oversized rectangles, piece the units, and then cut them down to the correct size. Here our finished size will be 2 inches by 4 inches. And the third method is using the ACCUQUILT cutting dies. Half rectangle triangles have a left side and a right side. I have placed these fabrics right sides up and cut this half rectangle triangle. I'm going to cut another one just so we'll have 2. Take these apart, we see that they're facing the same direction. And when you put these together, this is what they look like. So these were cut right sides up. We take this piece and we cut it with the right sides down. Let's do that and we'll see what it looks like. And we turn these over and you'll see they face the other direction. Or if we turn them this way, they face in this direction. So there's a left and a right side. And these go together like this. They look the same how they are now, but they're very different. Once you sew them together, they have that orientation that they're either left or right facing. So you need to be mindful of that when you're doing your cutting. The first method we're going to use to make the half rectangle triangles is to cut rectangles that are slightly oversized, and we'll sew them together and then trim them down to the correct size. There's a chart you can download in the description below the video that gives you all the sizes you need to cut for the various finished sizes of half rectangle triangles. For this example, we'll be making 8 half rectangle triangles. 4 will be left facing and 4 will be right facing. I've cut my rectangles 3 inches by 6 inches, and I want a 2 inch by 4 inch finished half rectangle triangle. I have 2 background rectangles and 2 accent rectangles in this stack, and the same here. So we have 8 rectangles all together. I'm going to take this stack and turn it over so the right sides are facing down, and this has the right sides facing up. I'll take my ruler and cut a diagonal line, and since we have half of the fabrics facing up and half facing down, it really doesn't matter which angle you use. And I cut all of these along the diagonal. And let's open them up and see what we have. These are like this. These are all the right sides, I'll call these. And now these are the left sides. 2 of those. And then we should have the same number in this stack. Now all these are facing right sides up now. Okay. We'll take these 2 stacks and sew them together like this, and these 2 like that. And so you see that they're facing in different directions. On the light fabric, we're going to turn them over, and on this long angle, we're going to mark our 1/4 inch seam allowance. We don't need to mark the entire line, just need to mark the ends. I'm taking a ruler that has a 1/4 inch line. It's a dashed line, and I'll take that 1/4 inch and lay it just at the bottom of this fabric. Reason I'm doing that is when I mark with my pencil this 1/4 inch line here and here, it will give me closer to a 1/4 inch. If I move this up any, and you can see the fabric from underneath this line, then my 1/4 inch line will be more than a 1/4 inch. So place it at the bottom, and we'll take a pencil and just mark on these 2 sides. That's really all you need to mark is the ends. And these are what we want to sew together. This is my marked one. Turn this over. Here's our marked line. on this side. I want to line up the edge of the fabric here, and then where this line reaches the edge of the fabric, I want that to be the edge of this fabric underneath. So that point points to where the two fabrics intersect at the line, or at the bottom. And I'll just put a little pin in here right now, and then we'll move this up and line this up. We want to match this edge here. This doesn't come out as close to the edge, but for this one, since we've oversized the cuts, we're just going to start here and stitch 1/4 inch all the way down. Here we have our piece stitched, and you see the stitching comes right here at this angle where the two fabrics meet at the edge of the fabric. And then this is just stitched off 1/4 inch. Now we'll press the seams open. The seams have been pressed open, and I'm not going to cut off these nubs right now. Take a piece of freezer paper, and it's cut 2 inches by 4 inches, which is the finished size that I want. I'm going to place it on the front side of this piece, matching this corner of the freezer paper with the seam line, and this corner of the freezer paper with the seam line. So we just move it around until all the diagonals match, and you want to make sure you have at least 1/4 inch all the way around this freezer paper. Then go to the iron and press it. Give it a quick press and it'll stick to the fabric. Now the freezer paper is pressed onto the fabric. We'll take a ruler with 1/4 inch markings on it and lay the edge. The 1/4 inch marking lines in this case are the dashed lines here and here. Place the dashed lines right on the freezer paper. So line up the dashed lines here with the freezer paper edges. And then you'll trim. Trim these two sides. And you'll see the freezer paper now has 1/4 inch seam allowance around these two sides. Flip it over and do the same thing on this other side. And then take the freezer paper off. On these edges here, the seam line doesn't go into the corner, because that's what you need when you're piecing these two other patches. Your 1/4 inch will end up right here on this seam line, so you'll have your seams starting and ending right in the corner in the intersections of those two pieces. You can reuse this freezer paper many times. Just don't press it for a long time. It just needs a quick little dab, and it holds it on long enough for you to trim it. The second method for piecing half rectangle triangles is to use a rectangle ruler. In this case, I'm using the Rex tool, which is part of the Tri-Rex ruler set. Any ruler that's designed for split rectangles or for half rectangle triangles you can use with this method. I have my two pieces of fabric, and again you have to be mindful of which way the fabrics are going. Are you cutting them with right sides up or wrong sides up? You just place the ruler. In this case we're placing it on the 4.5 inch mark of this strip, and we'll cut. On these special rulers, you will have a little notch that needs to be cut out. It's very tiny, but that's what it looks like. That notch will come in handy when we're piecing them together. To piece these, you're going to piece like this, flip this over, and let's look at the notch we just cut. This is the notch we cut off. So you match this notch with the bottom edge of this fabric, and these edges of the fabrics you'll match. So you have it matched here and here. And then move this over and line up the rest of this. And you'll start and just stitch 1/4 inch. Here is the stitching. It's stitched 1/4 inch. And as long as you're lined up, everything will come out fine. So I'm going to go press this open and show you what it looks like. Here it is pressed open. You'll notice here there's a little notch, and that's perfectly fine. This is where when you have your 1/4 inch seam allowance, it will be taken in, and then your 1/4 inch here, and your seam line will end up right in the corner when you sew the two pieces together. Cut off this nub, and that's what it looks like. And here's the top part, the same way. Go ahead and cut off that nub, and then you're finished. The third method for making half rectangle triangles is to use the ACCUQUILT cutting system. In the cube companion angles, you'll have the side pieces, and they're always shape 14 that will do these. These are usually used for the triangle and square. These are the sides. And they do make some other sizes that you can buy separate dies. I'll have a link to those in the description below the video, and they'll also be in the handout for the first part of this, the sizes to cut the oversized rectangle. So you'll have a download link, and you'll have a link directly to ACCUQUILT for that. So one thing you have to remember for this ACCUQUILT die, it has the two sides, and they will be facing the same way once you cut them. So if we wanted to make 2 of these in one direction and 2 of these in the other direction, this is what we'll need. We'll put these on the die right sides up, and we'll put these on the die right sides down. And then I'll go cut these and show you what they look like. I've cut them, and now I'll take off this excess pieces here, and we'll take the pieces off. So we have a stack of this and a stack of that. These are wrong sides up. So now we'll put them right sides up, and then these are the right sides up that were cut. So these are the sets you get. You'll have 2 facing in left and 2 facing right. And now to piece these, they'll go together like this. So we'll flip this over and match this part down here. You want to match this long edge, and then this cut off edge here. Just line it up even here and even here. And then I always put my finger on it and slide it up. Finish lining up this edge, and then this lines up here a little bit. And you'll stitch 1/4 inch all the way down. Here is the stitching. See, these match here and up here. And then here's what it looks like once it's pressed. These are your little extra edges on the side that will be taken up in the seam allowance, and over here too, like this. And with the ACCUQUILT, there are no nubs to cut off. So those are the 3 ways you can make half rectangle triangles. I use the method of cutting the rectangles larger, then trimming them down, and I did use the freezer paper, and it worked out just really well. I hadn't found that last time. I just recently saw that little trick on the internet, so I thought I'd pass that on. Now we'll take these, so these are the same, and we're going to piece them together like this in pairs. And then the same thing as these, piece them like this. So you'll have 4 of these pairs pieced together. Press your seams open. All of our units are put together. Now we just follow the diagram and lay them out. I'm using my Prop-It board. And there you have the block. Piece these units together into rows. This will be 1 row, 2, and 3. Press your seams open, then sew all your rows together and press those open. Thank you for watching. Don't forget to subscribe to my channel, and while you're at it, click the bell to be notified of future videos.